AM2 podcast. I'm your host, Michael Lancy. My co-host right here is Kyle Heath. This is the show where we cover gaming industry related news of the week. We're talking new and upcoming games, esports and personality. Where are we at? Technology innovation. Did I say that one?
Yeah. Bam.
That's where we are, man. Without further ado, like, what have you been up to, Kyle? What have you been doing this last week?
This last week. Um, Played a little more Starfield, just a little
Oh
bit.
yeah,
Not a whole
you've been
lot.
grinding that.
But yeah. After I beat the game, it's taking a little bit of a backseat, but I'm trying to get back to it when I can. Played some of that. At this point I'm sort of trying to wait until the new Cyberpunk update, which I think should be soon. So kinda holding out for that a little bit. Um
Yeah,
Other
that's
than that,
September 26th. That update.
yeah, is it day of DLC? I thought it was like mid-month, but I haven't checked in like a few days, so
Hmm.
but yeah.
I know it's gonna. We don't have it in our list of things to talk about, I don't think, but we got to double check our PC specs for that DLC to make sure it doesn't blow up.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Apparently,
think
it's
it
talking
was
about it's going to get too hot.
yeah, I think I was checking mine and at least for 1080p 60, I think I should be fine. It was kind of I want to say it was like 3080 or something like that, even for 1080p. It was weird. Either that or that was the 4K, I can't remember. May have been 4K, but anyways, yeah, I'm kind of waiting on that. See how all that shakes out because I want to play. Want to kind of want to start a new character. We'll see if it's like something I'll be able to invest enough time into by the time DLC comes out. Like
Sure.
how that'll work, but yeah, I want to do some of that. I don't think I had a chance to play really much else this week. I mean, it was a sport ball weekend. What can I say? So that was at least
That's a
most of the
fact,
weekend.
man.
So I was kind of just chilling out.
That's
Spent
true.
time with the boys, watching some ball, so that was fun. But yeah, other than that, not much other gaming related stuff. I don't know, Mike. Do you game a lot, dude?
I gamed more this last week than I had in like the last month because the last month I've been so busy I hadn't really had time. Um, I actually got back on. Well, I played a few games. The quick ones I played were like Rocket League when I had some free time and I was just trying to like kill time in between drinking pre-workout and going to the gym. So it's like, yeah, play a couple of games while I'm just sipping, trying to get to it. And the other one I started messing with is like Gunshot, who's friend of the show. We had him on before. He's doing multi-streaming, playing Halo 3 all the time. Dude's getting like a couple hundred viewers consistently, concurrent viewers on TikTok, and like across all of his platforms. I think he might be like it's kind of crazy how many viewers he has. It's absolutely wild. Like each platform has minimum 40 consistently. And so I've been like hopping in there playing some games with them. Because that Halo 3 is pretty difficult to play in 2023 by yourself. There's skill-based matchmaking, and there's not that many good players. So what happens is you get like your teammates that are just completely brand new to the game and clueless. So it's like he is fighting like a losing battle every time. So I was like, all
Uh,
right, let me just hop in. And like I had dinner and I'm like, I see him online. I'm like, I know he's going to play for like another hour. I got an hour. Let me jump in and play. Um, so that's what I've been doing a little bit. The one thing I'm probably most proud of is I got back on Diablo 4 and I finally got a mount. And
my guy.
dude,
Let's
now I can play
go.
with my friends, but they've all like beaten all the things that they can beat, so they're not really returning anymore. So Uh, there's a new update coming out, a new season, I think sometime in October. I gotta actually look up the date. I want to say it's like October 13th. But yeah, when that game comes, like when the update comes out, I'm sure they're gonna come back and then we can all join up together. But
I
yeah,
hope so. This man
I just
grinded
gotta
to play with the
just gotta
boys.
beat it now, dude.
Now he can't play with the boys. You know what I'm saying?
It's a fact. Like I
It's
didn't realize
crazy.
how quick it was gonna happen, like how rapidly. Like I took out Astaroth, I think, one of the like demons, and then I took out Anadr no, oh, jeez. Let me actually look up the names real quick because I had it readily available.
It was all on the
Diablo
tip of my
4.
tongue.
Yeah, so yeah, Astaroth I defeated, and then Anadariel, I think is how it is. But they're lesser evils, and I took them both out back to back. So I was like, yo, let's freaking go. Felt super confident. I had to do a lot of research and actually make the proper build in order to make that happen. But getting that done, I felt immediate dopamine, man, because I hadn't like had a severe challenge like that in a long time. And I think I was only challenging myself because I didn't have the right build out for my character. But once I got the right build out and the right armor, I just wiped them all out. It was sick.
Yeah.
So
Tends to be how it
yeah,
goes, right? It's like
yeah,
you build up to this moment, and you go into it, and you're like, I feel like this is like after the 20th attempt, you're like, I feel like this is should be easier, and then it's
dude,
like you think
yeah,
about it some, and you're like, oh, okay, I probably could make improvements to my build. Sure enough, half the
yeah.
time that's like that helps.
Yeah, do a little bit of research, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, wait, all I had to do is just add a couple of core elements to my character, and then this game becomes easy." It's
Yeah,
like, dang it, I wish I did that in the first place.
yeah.
But hey,
Well, it
you learn.
gets
That's part of it.
right. Yeah, I mean that was something me and my buddies discovered with Remnant because it's even more apparent when you play on a higher difficulty because you need every edge you can get kind of thing. Like you need kind
Yeah.
of everything that can help you. Want to make sure it's like kind of optimized, right? So yeah, I noticed that when playing the harder games for sure. Um,
Well, heck yeah, man. Should we go ahead and dive into this week's episode
I think we
and
should,
actually start talking about the news? I'm pretty excited to talk about pretty much a handful of them and get into it.
yeah, that
So,
was a lot to talk about.
yes, sir.
So I think we gotta start off with some interesting news. An interesting one, I would at least I think. Um,
A little bit of drama, if you will.
yeah, a little bit. Um, anyways, the first article comes from IGN, and it's discussing why Unity's new install fees are spurring massive backlash amongst game developers. Devs are asking players to refrain from installing games and demos when the new fee takes effect. Game developers aren't happy with the new policy from Unity that will cost developers a small fee every time someone downloads a game built on Unity's game engine. This article is covered from Logan Plant. Wrote this. It's called the Unity Runtime Fee, and the new pricing model will apply to developers who reach a certain amount of installs and revenue. Quote, we are introducing the Unity Runtime Fee that is based upon each time a qualifying game is downloaded by an end user. Unity's announcement reads in part, we chose this because each time a game is downloaded, the Unity runtime is also installed. Also, we believe that an initial install-based fee allows creators to keep the ongoing financial gains from player engagement, unlike a revenue share. The Unity runtime fee is scheduled to take effect on January 1st, 2024, and it's been universally panned by developers on social media since its announcement early today. And this was written on the 12th of September, so there was an update that was also posted just later on in the day. And before we get into too much detail about some of the backlash, Unity is actually planning to walk back some aspects of the runtime fee amid escalating anger from developers. According to Axios, the fee will now only apply to the initial installation of game, and that developers are not on the hook for installations through Xbox Game Pass, with fees instead being passed to platform holders like Xbox. Demos will also not be affected unless they are part of a demo that includes the full game. Games offered in charity bundles will be exempt from fees. Unity executive Mark Wheaton claimed only 10% of developers will be impacted by the fees. There's a couple of indie devs that have posted to Twitter some statements. I kind of noticed this the other day, just like seeing it's formatted like when I see stuff like this, I'm like, all right, who messed up? You know, it's like the apology kind of format, or it's like you see this
Yeah.
giant letter. Yeah, and it's kind of aggro crab, which I love that name. That is that was an indie dev that kind of expressed its concern with this with the fees, and they posted to Twitter. But Unity's blog post details what games will qualify for the runtime fee based on two key criteria. That is, the game has passed a minimum revenue threshold in the last 12 months, and the game has passed a minimum lifetime install count. Unity further lays out the minimum revenue and install count to qualify with different thresholds for developers using Unity Personal, Unity Plus, Unity Pro, and Unity Enterprise. For smaller indie developers who use Unity Personal, Unity Plus, they'll have to pay Unity 20 cents per install once their game passes $200,000 in revenue over the last 12 months. and 200,000 life-to-date installs. This new policy has caused a lot of backlash amongst developers who are raising concerns about free-to-play games, charity bundles, and more. Again, you read some of the updates earlier, kind of charity bundles won't be included. And yeah, if it's on Game Pass or something like that, Xbox would take the brunt of the fee. And so yeah, it kind of goes on. There's more Twitter posts. And this is by I don't even know this handle. I'm not even. I don't think I'm gonna try and pronounce it. It's like, yeah. So essentially, it's make a game. Game is free. Game makes 200K from in-app purchases after being installed 3 million times. You now owe Unity 20 cents per 2.8 million installs, which is 560K, and that's 360K more than we made. So it's like
crap.
it's kind of does the math and shows how that can add up pretty quickly. Others are worried that this could lead some smaller developers who built their games on Unity to pull titles from digital storefronts to prevent more people from racking up downloads. Quote, I bet Steam, Epic, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft will love having ways of developers pulling their games, writes Forrest from Among Us developer Innersloth Games. Innersloth has always paid Unity appropriately for licenses and services we use. I'm not a discourse guy, sorry, but this is undo and will force my hand. So it's like, yeah. It goes on to does say if you buy a Unity game, just don't install it. It's like if you buy our game, just don't install it.
That's
kind of thing.
Crazy.
It's wild. I don't know. What do you think? What kind of impact do you think fees like this have, especially on indie devs, Mike?
Well, when they break down this Curtis Alfan, the Michael Foxney one, the crazy handle. When he breaks it down like that, make a game is free, and then the game only makes 200,000 from in-game purchases, but it's been installed 3 million times, and because of that install, they now owe 560,000. Like, what's the incentive, right? Because you need to. Do you really want to pay $360,000 to make your game?
Yeah. You pocket nothing,
to
right?
lose, you really
lose
there's no incentive to be on that, and like the follow-up dev basically saying is like, this is going to force my hand to go to other platforms. I mean, Microsoft loves this, I'll tell you right away, right? They have the Xbox indie dev program, where they're all about like, hey, come to us, we'll let you do everything for free, just eventually we're going to take a cut when you become successful. That's their whole pitch,
right?
Yeah, I didn't realize how damning this really is,
Yeah, or how it could be, right?
Yeah. For context, Unity game engine is in Pokemon Go, Monument Valley, Call of Duty Mobile, Beat Saber, and Cuphead. So it's like this
just
is kind
to name
of
a few.
yeah, just to name a few. So this is going to impact a lot of people, and obviously the indie devs are going to get hit the hardest easily.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it goes on to say, this new pricing model has some developers consider rebuilding their game in an entirely different engine, calling on Unity to refund lifetime license costs for everyone. Some developers so do I just rebuild my whole game in a different engine? Spent a small fortune on pro licenses to develop the game over several years. Seems kind of insane that Unity could just throw this out there on a whim. They should refund the lifetime licenses cost for everyone. And yeah, I don't even know how much those are, but I'm sure it's not cheap, right?
No, it can't be.
Do
you think it's going to be greedy, or do you think it's a business move that they have to make?
Yeah, I don't know. It's it could be something they have to make. I mean, even considering it's it's certainly not cheap to I'm sure it's not cheap to license games, make games, that kind of thing. But then again, I don't know. I mean, you have these big blockbuster titles using Unity, right? Like these AAA games. So it's like, it makes you wonder how much they really need.
Do this,
Yeah. It's like, yeah. I almost feel like maybe no. But considering it seems like they're not necessarily rescinding this, even after all the backlash, makes me think that there could be an aspect to it that's kind of like, well, we need to do something.
Yeah,
kind of
something
thing.
We don't really know.
Yeah. It's entirely possible, right? some have pointed out that toxic, angry gamers could organize mass install campaigns against developers they don't like. Um, they
Oh
could
gosh.
they could get as many people as possible to download a Unity game from a small developer to attempt to financially harm them. It's like, if you think about it that way, it's like you could be malicious with it. I mean, in theory, you probably
Or
could,
rival
right? I mean,
companies, right?
yeah, um, yeah,
It's crazy.
it's kind of crazy. And the article goes on even more to kind of talk about respond about the charity bundle concerns as well as like malicious installation like attacks. This is like a
Yeah.
whole new kind of thing. um in a statement, IGN, a Unity spokesperson, said they're already working on preventing malicious install harassment campaigns. Quote, we do already have fraud detection practices in our ads technology, which is solving a similar problem, so we will leverage that know-how as a starting point. We recognize that users will have concerns about this. We will make available a process for them to submit their concerns to our fraud compliance team. Unity also clarified that the fee will not apply to charity games or charity bundles. Unity defended the pricing model, saying it's designed to only charge developers who have already found financial success. And then there's a post that goes on. And it says, we only succeed when you succeed. Our 5% royalty model only kicks in after your first $1 million in gross revenue, meaning if you make $1 million in one, you owe us 5 cents, and that is per title. Also, revenue generated from the Epic Games Store will be excluded from that 5% royalty. And this is kind of talking about the Unreal Engine kind of the in-game revenue wave. And I guess that's kind of Unreal Engine's response to it, I feel like. Saying, this is, royalties are all waived for the first million, and after that's when you owe Unreal Engine. So it's yeah, interesting stuff to say the least. I don't know. Do you think Unreal Engine gets an edge after all this?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's probably the better engine. I've never like done programming, coding, or anything for games, but Unreal Engine base should be the new norm, I would imagine. Like
Yeah,
Unreal Engine 5 looks incredible.
yeah, it's
So
true.
now Unity, maybe it's easier to deal with. Maybe the languages are easier to mess with, and like it's better for somebody that's working by themselves. And Unreal Engine's more for like a very serious company and corporation, like a whole team of people working on a game.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and I mean I can speak a little bit to that. I think. I mean I've like played around in Unity a little bit. It's certainly I think if you really know what you're doing from a development standpoint, then Unreal Engine might be the way to go. And it just, I mean, frankly, I think the games just turn out like a lot cleaner in Unreal Engine compared to Unity. But that's just from what I've seen. It's certainly more widely used, I think. But I mean, I didn't include this article in this week's roundup, but there was an article about essentially someone was remade like a kind of like a Walmart brand version of Starfield in just a couple of days. And I want to say it was Unity they did some of the programming in, but it's
I
like
heard about that.
the
Yeah,
way they did it, they kind of showed it. It's like, obviously there's maybe a little bit of coding, but they have kind of the node editor kind of thing where it's like you have a visual representation and you can kind of like move assets around. And so it's like maybe a
that's
little
pretty
less
cool.
code you have to deal with,
Yeah, less
but yeah,
polished kind of thing.
yeah. But yes, I mean it's certainly, I mean I think no game development is necessarily easy, but if you had to choose one to learn, probably Unity's a more kind of like
Starting point
initial,
kind of thing.
yeah, like kind of if you're starting out, it's probably a good thing to go with. Um,
Yeah, that's a shame because this obviously is it's gonna hit developers the hardest. So I wonder what Unity's trying to do. You would imagine that like having more devs using your engine, and then you basically have a larger market share of video games that are using your engine would be a good thing.
right, yeah,
But if
yeah,
you're
new thing.
incentivizing people to go to competitors, then okay, they're gonna do that.
I mean, yeah, definitely gonna do that. Um, yeah, and continuing on a little bit, this program was designed specifically this way to ensure developers could find success before the install fee takes effect. The developers who will be impacted are generally those who have successful games that are generating revenue way above the thresholds. This means that developers who are still building their business and growing the audience of their games will not pay a fee. Unity also said it will track installs with its own proprietary data. Speaking to Axios, Unity also confirmed that if a player deletes a game and reinstalls it, that counts as 2 installs and not 2 separate fees. Um, Folks who work on Epic Games' Unreal Engine, which is Unity's biggest competitor, are capitalizing on Unity's bad day by pointing out that Unreal's 5% royalty model kicks in only after the game crosses 1 million, which we discussed earlier. Unity has been under pressure lately, laying off hundreds of employees in the first half of 2023. I don't even know what that word is. Is that name? What is that, Mike?
Risatelio?
Risatelio also came under fire in 2022 for referring to developers who don't focus on microtransactions as big idiots. I won't say the whole thing, but there's a lot more colorful language before apologizing. Featured in everything from Cuphead to Beat Saber to Pokemon Go. It has been lauded for ease of use, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, which I think is the case. I'm not a developer, right? But just from the little bit of experience I've had. However, trusting the platform that has been declining over the years, leading many developers to look to alternatives. Now I could say unequivocally, if you are starting a new game project, do not use Unity, wrote developer Brandon Sheffield in a post summing up the feelings of many creators. If you were starting a project 4 months ago, it's worth switching to something else. Unity is quite simply not a company to be trusted. And it seems like...
Yeah, I mean, they switched the game up on them. I can understand how they'd be salty.
I mean, yeah.
You know?
I would be too, man. It's, because it takes forever, right? Especially if you're kind of a solo team or you have maybe a couple people and it's like, you pour all this time into this game and months, and then it's just like, oh, we may actually have to, like, especially, like, and everyone making a game, it's like, I mean, I know there's probably some people that don't think it's gonna be successful, but, like, to a certain extent, you have to believe in what you're making, right? And you have to think, like, oh, at some point it could hit that threshold, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so, yeah, you gotta protect yourself to a certain extent. So, all the game developers out there, you may want to look at Unreal, or maybe another alternative. I mean, trying to think. I don't know. Hit up EA. What do they have? The Frostbite engine?
Yeah, they got Frostbite.
Use some proprietary engine. Just pay millions of dollars. You know?
Maybe. I do think it's a good. I think the that Unreal Engine's 5% royalty. I mean, that's kind of tough, but it only kicks in when you get to $1 million. So if you get to $1 million on one of your games, that's a successful game,
right? Yeah.
That can like maintain itself, and then you can just move on to another project.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah, and even if you're hitting $1 million, it's like probably wasn't a super slow climb. I would assume you'd hit that quick, and then you continue to grow, and like the fees. Yeah. I mean, 5% fees not terrible, right? So I mean, you can kind of front that whenever you're making that sort of money. I feel like, but yeah, interesting stuff in the world of development and indie devs, and yeah, it's something to consider if you're trying to develop a game. I think which engine to use.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment right there.
Oh yeah. Speaking of games, and when they release.
Yeah, this next one's coming from CNET. Or no, dude, I have my order backwards. You messed me up.
I'm sorry.
You messed me up. We gotta.
I don't know when I switched it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you kill me, dude.
Maybe it's.
But it's fine. This one I'm also excited to talk about.
Oh.
xDefiant. So we're talking about xDefiant. It's made by Ubisoft, who I feel like we've covered Ubisoft a lot this year. I mean, they've been struggling. They're all over the place. We don't know what they're doing.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah, the writing. I'm not saying the writing's on the wall, but there's so many red flags that's got me nervous. I'll be honest. But that's neither here nor there. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit when we get into this episode or this segment. So Ubisoft delays xDefiant after failing console certification. Not a good sign. This is by Justin Carter, contributing editor from Game Developer. I don't even know how you fail console certification, but let's get into it. Ubisoft confirms its upcoming multiplayer shooter xDefiant has been pushed back after it failed to pass console certification from PlayStation and Xbox. So for those of you that don't know, xDefiant is, if I remember correctly, Kyle, it's a team of ex-COD developers that basically made a COD knockoff in a way.
It sure is.
Yeah. So let's go. In a recent blog post, producer Mark Rubin explained that the studio applied for certification in July and found out in August it didn't meet those requirements. As a result, the studio is now looking for compliance and functionality bugs so it can reapply within the next 2 weeks and release in mid or late September. Third-party developers like Ubisoft and EA have to get certification for first-party studios in order for their games to release on storefronts like the PlayStation or Xbox stores. For big studios, the process is important to ensure their games get as much attention as possible, and it's rare that certification either doesn't happen or gets revoked. Sheesh.
Whew. Hmm. You know, it's
Uh,
I mean, I've that's the thing. If your game gets denied, I mean, it's not just a couple of bugs, right? It's got to be like
yeah.
it's got to be kind of riddled just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I, I don't even
oh
know, man. Like, I wonder if they're gonna go into it in this article, but my initial thoughts are like maybe they built the PC version first and try to port it to PlayStation, Xbox, and it just broke everything. Because
yeah,
sometimes
I
that will
mean,
happen,
who
going the
knows? Yeah.
opposite way. Um, yeah. Or maybe they're struggling with like the old generation, like PS4 and Xbox Series S.
I
You
mean,
know how we talk
yeah, if
about
they're
that from time to
I mean,
time?
yeah, if they're
Yeah.
trying to go on the yeah,
If
got
it just
you,
really
yeah, you
depends.
got digitals on platforms. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
2023, Mike. You know, we're about to get
it's a
pro
fact.
versions of the PlayStation, probably. You know what I mean? Like,
Honestly, yeah. And there's a rumor there's a Switch too. Might be announced at Nintendo Direct this month. We'll find out. We'll find
oh
out.
shoot.
But little little sidetrack. Let's get back to the story though. So here we are. Ruben acknowledged that it's possible Sony and Microsoft will approve XDefiant with a conditional pass, meaning a day one patch would have to be implemented. Should that be the case, the shooters will be delayed to mid or late October. Holy smokes.
Oh,
So, from the blog post, these are quotes from Mark Rubin. If we were following the standard rules for game releases, we would have set a date far enough in advance with enough buffer to have a confident release date. However, like a lot of things with this game, we have not chosen the typical route. When it comes to when we will release XDefiant, the real answer is as soon as we can, and we will continue to update you with more info when we have it. Bro, I've been around long enough. You know what I'm about to say. You already know. I've seen this kind of crap so many times, man, that I'm just this game is going to be a total bust
it's just like,
immediately. Immediately,
oh,
man.
dude.
Total bust.
You know what my faith is, Mike? For the audio people, I'm holding up a 0 right now. A little circle.
I've Jeez.
I
We're
just,
probably more I love it how the next paragraph references this game. You see what I'm like scroll down a little bit. It references that game at the end of
yeah.
that first paragraph. I have more hope in Skull and Bones now than I do X Defiant, bro. Like you're telling me you can't launch on Xbox and PlayStation because you can't get console certification, bro. Like,
I think the biggest thing that worries me out of all this is just like, yeah, you know, our method for development, it's not like a standard practice and like a proper
yeah,
path. You know,
what?
we're just like bros in an office, just goofing
Yeah,
off
I
half the
mean,
time, and we'll fix this bug then. We'll get to that later. Uh,
we have not chosen the typical route.
it's like,
Does that
like
just
what
mean
is
you don't
like what is
finish it? Like,
like what
what's the
is
typical route,
like what does
bro?
that
Like,
mean? Like, I'm not sure. Oh
uh,
man,
and
it's
everybody keeps
insane.
asking us, by the way, when we're going to release. The real answer is as soon as we can, which hopefully is this year. Like, dude, come on,
It's just like it's like
come
you
on,
know it was. I'm pretty sure it was like spring, and then it was like summer,
dude.
and you
They
know
keep,
summer
yeah,
releases nowadays. Like whenever you say summer and it's a couple months out, it's not coming out in the
yeah.
summer. I'm sorry. Like it might as well just chalk it. You know.
You
Um.
know what scares me? You know what absolutely terrifies me? So this game didn't get console certification. Halo Infinite did, Battlefield 2042 did, Cyberpunk 2077 did. Like, dude, how bad is this game going to be on console if those games that launched were trash
Yeah.
ended up launching, you know?
Well, see, and now it's like the developers, I feel like are kind of screwed to a certain extent because, like, if you do get a conditional pass, right? I mean, you're slaving away until day one to try and get as much as you can fixed. Those are going to
That's the
be long
fact.
hours, right? If you're trying to hit a deadline. But it
That's
seems
true.
like
What if
the thing is they never had a
yeah.
deadline though. You know, like there was never a set date. It was kind of just like, all right, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, kind of thing. Which is like
That's
just
such a
not
bad
very.
idea.
It's not very promising, especially for like an arena shooter, right? It's like
No,
I don't know.
heck no, man. You need with arena shooters, man, you need to like when you release the game, it has to be perfect, like functionality, and it has to be fun. And then you have to get the cloud of like streamers and content creators on it. Because
Yeah,
if
I
you
mean,
don't, like the entire game is playing against others. You need a large population. You can't just depend on a story mode.
Yeah,
Although there are arena shooters that do that. Like I
right.
buy Call of Duty specifically for the story mode.
Yeah,
That's what I do, but I'm a rarity,
yeah.
out of
And I
like a
mean,
arena arena shooters minority.
and like this is the other thing too to consider. It's like when you have an arena shooter, I would argue that it's probably the most controlled environment for developing in a game, right? Because you know
Yeah.
all the like variables, right? Like like there's a confined
Ideally.
space, right? Like
I
like ideally okay, this is the world we have. These are the kind of the walls we have to build around, kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's a small kind of space. It's not open world. There's a lot of like stuff we don't necessarily have to worry about in that regard. Like, I mean, it should be a fairly controlled space. I mean, if you're adding a bunch of I mean, I know this game has like, like the weird I think it's got like specialist stuff and whatever, where it's like, weird abilities and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like roles to fill, similar to how what's that game? Rainbow Six Siege in a way?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like that. I mean, yeah, but yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, it's an arena shooter. I mean, there's a reason that there's a new COD that comes out every year, right? Because you have that
Yeah.
formula, and then you have, I mean, especially if you're, I think too, if you're releasing like similar maps, you're reusing assets constantly, right? You're recycling. So it's like
Ideally.
the only way, I mean, the only way you could do that every single year consistently is I mean, okay, there's a lot we can reuse. There's a lot we can do because coming out with a game every year, I mean, we've covered this before too. It's increasingly harder to release a game every year, right? Like, there's just so much
It
to
is.
video games now. And like, if you want to, I mean, I don't know, this isn't necessarily applied to like arena shooters, but like just any game in general now, it's like a blockbuster title takes years to make. So I mean, it's 3+ years for a lot of these games to eventually come out
Yep.
which I'm not against. I mean, I love good video games. It's one of those things like I want these games to take time, but I think it's also like, we're at a point now where it's kind of like, it does take a while for these games to come out. And so now there's like a lot of these lulls. And I hear from people all the time, kind of
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't feel like gaming is what it used to be because, it takes forever to get new releases and get good games. So
And then they come out kind of broken.
yeah. And then half the
But
time they don't deliver. And that's another story.
yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I mean, this is like a huge tangent, but I mean, I don't know. Do we want to continue with this article, Mike? Do you want to talk about the importance of this launch of
Uh,
the game developer?
I mean, it's I'm basically like skimming through it right now, and a couple of things that they mention that we can just kind of hit on is all the essentially what the remainder of the article is talking about how there's going to be a lot of competition coming out. So you got Star Wars Outlaws is going to be there. I really like the fact that it's called maybe Skull and Bones will be
Yeah,
coming out this year.
and
But then you
maybe.
have Assassin's Creed Mirage coming out. You're going to have a couple of free to play massive games coming out from different studios. You've got the big titles probably of the year is Alan Wake 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And xDefiant is supposed to be a game that's going to be on all platforms. And it's supposed to be this big arena shooter. But if you're coming out during all those heavy hitters, man, like every single one of those games I just listed, I'm interested in seeing what they're like. I
Yeah.
know you really want to play Alan Wake 2. I know you're
Oh
not
yeah.
really big into the arena shooter kind of stuff, but I think you would probably want to check it out at least.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
But do you
Right.
have time when you got Super Mario Bros. Wonder coming out or Spider-Man 2? I don't have a PlayStation, but damn, if they keep coming out with these types of IPs, bro, I just might need to pony up. I know you saw my tweet earlier. Just another day gone where I can't
Yeah.
buy a Sony TV with a PlayStation in it. It's like it kills me all the time, man.
Oh,
But
it's
I
yeah.
think yeah, there's a lot of drama coming around xDefiant and this this game developer article by Justin Carter essentially nuked all my expectations and optimism for the game. I
Yeah.
already thought it was a COD ripoff when I saw people hyping it up and playing it on stream and all like the biggest content creators you could possibly think of were playing it
Yeah.
for what, like a month during the
I
closed
mean,
beta?
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Mike. It was
GG's, bro.
when I played it, it was forgettable. Like, it's just like like you tell me, like I'm trying to talk about it now, and I barely remember half the gameplay. It's just like, oh, it kind of
Yeah.
blended with COD. Like, it's just like, I don't know, the old arena shooter. It's hard for me to enjoy an arena shooter nowadays, unfortunately, unless it's like mouse and
Yeah.
key. Like then I can probably enjoy it. But I mean,
I mean, dude,
the last serious one was probably was hyper not Hyperscape. What's that game called?
The arena shooter? You talking about Splitgate?
Splitgate, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that
That
was
was a
the
polished game. That just didn't have an audience.
yeah. I mean, that was the last like arena shooter I thoroughly enjoyed. I put some hours
Yeah.
into. So, um, curious to see what they
They're
come
coming
out
out
with
with the
next.
second one.
Yeah, no,
Coming out with the
I'm
second one.
curious to see it. Hmm.
It's gonna be good. I have a lot of
And
confidence in that development team and the
yeah,
preview work.
and now that I think about it, it's been a year since they announced that, right? That they were moving
Yeah.
on. So,
You can
dang,
still play it, but they don't support it actively.
right.
And again, arena shooters, you need a population to play. That's just a fact.
Yep. It's very
So,
true, you know. But yeah, it's I mean, yeah, but like yeah, and that last point about, it's like it's a busy packed season for games. And so
mhm.
it's hard to find time for even like average games this year, it feels like. Um
Yeah, yeah, and me personally, I'm sure most people are probably about the same, whether it's monetary issues or just like time consumption. I don't have enough time to finish all the games I have on my list.
yeah,
Like I'm busy, man.
yeah,
So
it's true. Yeah, I
it's
mean
tough.
like yeah, it's crazy. And like a game like I mean like Immortals of Avium I heard was like it was an okay game, but it's one of those things that's like it comes back to the thing of is like, well, I mean, with all these releases coming up, it's like, do I really have time for it? Probably not. So
No.
maybe next year if if there's nothing if it's a slow year. But yeah, man, a lot of stuff coming out. Especially if you got a PlayStation, you got Spider-Man 2. That thing's gonna be killer. Understand?
Dude. I saw a couple of hype videos on it, but let's just move on to the next little article. There's something big that happened in the whole tech industry. That this is the article I thought
There
you
is.
gave me, and they switched it up on me last minute.
Sorry, Mike.
But
But
nah, it's all good,
this
man.
guy's an Android user. You know what I'm saying? How can I give an
That's
Android user the iPhone article?
that's a fact. Sorry, I'm that guy.
Oh,
Green text
so
fam.
yeah, I mean, I will say though, admittedly, I did not watch like the presser or whatever for like the new Apple
I
stuff.
heard all about it though.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it. I didn't like read the specs of the new iPhone or anything because they did, of course, Apple did announce new iPhone, which is like part of it. But it's one of those things like I got my new phone last year, so now I'm just kind of like chilling and it's just like I
Yeah,
don't really care. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty interesting announcement they had. So this is coming from CNET. Oscar Gonzalez writes, Death Stranding, Resident Evil 4 remake, Assassin's Creed Mirage are coming to the iPhone 15 Pro. Apple is bringing true console gaming to the iPhone. Apple's Wonderlust event on Tuesday was all about the iPhone 15 and Apple Watch, including some interesting mobile gaming features that is if you buy a iPhone 15 Pro. Powering the new Pro lineup of iPhones is the A17 Pro chip, which Apple revealed during Tuesday's show. The new processor takes the upcoming iPhone Pro to a new level in mobile gaming with better graphical performance and ray tracing, a technology that displays realistic light in video games. Because of the powered up chip, the console versions of Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Death Stranding, and Assassin's Creed Mirage will come to the iPhone 15 Pro in the coming year, Apple said. While Apple has long boasted its iPhones are capable of console quality gaming, this is the first time full versions of so called AAA console games have been available on the mobile platform. Tuesday's show focused on the upgrades coming to the iPhone and Apple Watch lineup. iPhone 15 with the first phone to come with a USB C charge port. Hear that, Mike? USB C on the iPhone,
yeah.
baby.
It's about time.
All time.
No more adapters.
Yeah, gotta adhere to those EU policies, at some point. While Apple says the titanium iPhone 15 Pro is the lightest Pro model it's ever made, handheld gaming took a turn in the past 2 years thanks to the Steam Deck, Bell's portable PC gaming device, and the rise of cloud gaming has spurred other tech companies to make portable devices capable of playing full versions of video games, such as the Razer Edge, Lenovo Legion Go, the Logitech G Cloud, the ROG Ally, and the upcoming PlayStation Portal. However, that is tethered to the PlayStation, right? I just gotta say
Yep.
that, right? It's not
Yeah, I
a
was like, you gotta mention that. They're very different.
yeah, that is not the equivalent of a ROG Ally, Logitech G Cloud, etc. Just gotta say, sorry, Sony, but it's buns. All right,
This guy.
but I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Mike? AAA titles, console quality, on running on a mobile device as small as a phone.
Uh, well, first of all, that's the future, regardless of like how you feel about it. Mobile gaming is the future. That's what's going to happen. You're going to have more AAA games on your cell phones, on your mobile, your tablet. Like these new handhelds that are coming out, they're actually pretty fire, look amazing. But I think this is a bigger deal because it's on Apple. And I know I'm a Droid user, but Apple is pretty optimized when it comes to software. And if they could try to become optimized with these AAA games, I think there's going to be new hurdles. Like, you know how the AAA studios have been complaining about optimizing their games for the Series S, like the lower tier consoles. They're probably going to complain just as much when it comes to Apple. They're pretty serious about their proprietary, like, or their functionality on Apple phones. If you've ever noticed that, it's like a key example is like they're so strict with how their software works on their phones because they're all basically the same that when like Apple phones are more optimized for most apps, whereas like there's so many different droids out there that like you'll have a couple of droids that maybe the Pixel is better than a Samsung on like Snapchat. People still freaking use Snapchat, or like TikTok is a really good example. Like using the in-game video, it's like the Android phones definitely have the best cameras on the market, but it's better. Like the software is better optimized for Apple because they have like this ecosystem that you have to abide by if you're putting products on their platform.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it's gonna be cool to see how that works with AAA console, AAA games, and if it can be as smooth as what I see people doing with all the different social media apps, I mean, bro, that can be a game changer. It can be. It's definitely something to be excited about, just to see Apple joining the space.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's the future, like you're saying. Um, and I think, devices will get smaller, run games better. Do have to say though, what's your opinion on
Oh,
this? Do you think, or I guess I should preface it like this, how hot do you think this phone is gonna get running a AAA title? Like we
ooh,
talking cooking an egg on it? Talking
mm,
just kinda, hand warmer.
ooh, that's hard to say, right? So, do I don't have an iPhone. You do though, right?
Yeah, I do.
How does your iPhone get hot when you're on the phone
When I'm
for
on
an
the
extended period of time?
phone,
Which nobody's
not
ever doing anymore, but
not often. I will say though, for the first time probably since I've had it recently, and this was like earlier this week, it did get like it was noticeably hot at one point, but I think I just had like YouTube videos on in the background on it for a little while. It was
mm,
on the charger, took it off, but it was like it was boiling and that battery was cooking. So I don't know, I guess depending on the stuff. I haven't gamed extensively on this, but I can imagine that, it probably would get a little hot. But yeah, I don't know. But if you're running a
interesting.
AAA title, it's like how
It's
those thermals going to be.
I mean, it's definitely gonna cook. Let's get that out of the way. But is it gonna cook more than any other of these devices that they mentioned, like the Razer Edge, Legion Go, G Cloud, all that kind of stuff that we talked about? I don't know. You know,
I think you will notice it more on an iPhone, right? Because like the controls are on
and they
the
don't have
device,
fans too, right?
and there's
Yeah,
yeah, I mean there's no fans. The controls are on the device. Meanwhile, Steam Deck, it's like you have the motherboard's in the middle, but the controls are kind of separated, so to speak, right? Um,
yeah.
so you don't notice it as much. But yeah, I mean, there's no fan. I mean, it's something I didn't think about. Like, I mean, I don't think there's a fan in any like smartphone really. It's kind of just like I guess thermals are designed a certain way. But then again, I don't know the entire. I've never cracked open an iPhone, so I mean, maybe there's some fan. I don't. It'd be a really small
There's
one, but
I highly doubt it. It's probably like in convection. I don't know. I went to school for engineering. There's something about it. Uh, Kind of how a chimney stack works, but that's more about heat rising. But the shape of like if you got a lot of energy inside that's hot and you do like a cone kind of it should dissipate naturally through the
yeah,
phone.
yeah.
Should. Whether or not it does, I don't know.
Extensive testing is needed. This is why they
Of
spend months and
course.
months.
Of course.
It's
I mean, it's
insane.
definitely something to keep an eye out, man. I really like how they finally added the USB-C. That means you can have more accessories be compatible with the phone.
Yeah,
Like there are tons and tons of like you can go to Amazon right now and just do USB-C like cell phone controller attachment, you know? And basically turn your phone into the PlayStation Portal,
yeah.
which is not a tab like that's not even worth getting to be honest. Uh,
This
That's a
is
very small group of people that will need that or use that.
yeah, very true.
Yeah.
And before I end this article, Mike, I just have to say,
Mhm.
want to know what the most Apple thing is out of this entire announcement and all these releases that were announced? What the most Apple thing is?
The most Apple thing
It was a product that was released. I don't know if I mean I'm sure it was announced in the presentation, but it's like a very small product that it's
is
just
it a
like
watch?
it screams Apple. No, it's not the watch. You're switching your port to USB-C, right? I mean, are you including a charger cable with it? Yeah, maybe, right? But if I want to use like my old charging cable for my previous iPhone that was Lightning, for $30, Mike, you can purchase a
Oh
Lightning
my
cable to
god.
USB adapter from Apple.
Dude, I swear, like, I'm gonna say something real quick. The reason why I don't have an Apple, because I used to have Apple.
Yeah,
Here's the problem with Apple. When you get in their ecosystem, they freaking trap you, dude. They're like, you need to have iTunes. The only way to update your phone and switch the database, you gotta have iTunes. Oh, by the way, you need iCloud. And it's like next thing you know, you're paying like subscriptions on top of subscriptions. You need an upgraded cable. You need to do like, oh, now it'd be great to have the iPad because the iPad's like the best tablet you can buy. I mean, they're definitely getting better, but they used to always be the best. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, well, I got all this other stuff, so let's make it all compatible because they talk to each other, right? What do we need next? We need a Mac. It's like it just keeps climbing up, dude. And it gets out of control. And it's like, then it's like, oh, well, I can't get a traditional keyboard. I got to get like an Apple keyboard, an Apple mouse. It's sleeker, looks cooler. It's like, Jesus, man, Steve Jobs is really trying to rob us blind. But I got out. I
Steve
got free, dude. And now everybody memes me for green text. But that's the price you pay.
Green bubbles. You understand? Green
Yeah.
bubbles.
Nah, I don't hate Apple though. I just understand them.
Yeah,
Proud
I mean, like we
gouging.
all do, you know. You know,
Yeah.
it's a game that a lot of people understand, a lot more than traditional gamers,
Oh.
probably.
Oh, one of my first ever games, dude. Believe it or not. I ever tell you that?
Oh, I don't think you
One of
did. I'm glad I gave you this
yeah.
one.
Yeah, it's about The Sims, dude. The classic. I actually played it not for like what The Sims was intended for. I used to just play it because I would use all the codes and the hacks and then make houses really cool. So this article is coming from The Verge. It's Andrew Webster wrote this article, and we've covered loads of his stuff. He's actually been with The Verge since 2012. Did you know that?
It's
Something
crazy.
new.
What a vet.
Wild. So the next Sims will be free, and it won't replace The Sims 4. Which makes sense. The Sims 4 is pretty goated, man. And they have like, if you have the PC version, they have tons of mods, and you
Yeah.
can do a lot of crazy stuff with it.
Yeah.
But it is also made by Electronic Arts, the most despised company in the world.
Zing.
Ele- EA is continuing to slowly reveal details from its next gen The Sims game, codenamed Project Renee. This time, during a behind the scenes presentation, the company announced some key features, notably how the game will be priced and how it will exist alongside existing titles in the Sims franchise. Interesting. In terms of price, EA says that Project Renee will be free to download, which shouldn't be too surprising given that The Sims 4 went free to play last year. This is a quote from the company blog post. This means that when Project Renee is ready and fully open to players, you'll be able to join, play, and explore it without a subscription. Core game purchase or energy mechanics. Oh, I read that incorrectly. You'll be able to explore without subscription, core game mechanic, or energy mechanics. We want playing to be super easy for you to invite or join friends and experience new features, stories, and challenges. Okay, but what is it?
Okay. Okay.
As for what you'll actually pay for, EA explains that we will sell content and packs, much like The Sims 4, but it sounds like the overall structure of the game and how things will be sold will be different in The Sims 4. Here's how EA explains it. For example, basic weather may be added to the core game for free for everybody, and in the future, a pack of purchase may be focused on winter sports with activities like ice dancing, skating, maybe, or a snowman building competition. It's important that with Project Renee, we lower barriers to play and give all players the broadest shared systems because that feels like the strongest foundation for us to grow from. Speaking of The Sims 4, EA also says that the existence of Project Renee won't be the end for its current Sims game. We will continue to support both at the same time, and we will plan to bring more exciting content to Sims 4 community for the foreseeable future. There's still no word on when Project Renee might launch. The developer says that it is still in the early stage of development, but EA has been making good on its promise of having a more open development process. Previously, we learned that the next Sims game will focus on both solo and multiplayer experiences, and EA says that more details in the multiplayer component will be available later this year. So I suppose that is going to be the new addition to The Sims, I guess, franchise, their
Yeah,
IP
yeah, I think
legacy.
so.
I not really familiar with how the multiplayer component will go. I wonder if they'll do some type of social media kind of engagement to keep people involved.
I
Imagine
mean,
playing
yeah,
like The Sims, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is all implemented into it.
it'd be pretty
Kind of cool.
sick. I think it'd be pretty cool and having something
It's
like
like getting into the metaverse or whatever Mark
that.
Zuckerberg's trying to do.
It kind of is, yeah, when you put it like that. I mean, it's cool to
We'll
see
see.
the yeah, I mean, it's cool to see the Sims kind of taking a route of more kind of like free to play and just kind of
Yeah.
opening everything up and just letting people just jump in and enjoy the game. And then also like for Sims 4, I mean, Sims 4, I feel like it's been out for it's a millennia. I don't even know how long it's been out. Like I remember Sims 3 was like I remember that was out for like such a long time, and
It
Sims 3
really
was such like
was.
a goated game, and then they were like, "Oh, Sims 4." You're like, "Oh, finally the next entry." Now it's kind of like, okay, well the next entry will kind of just be like a free to play sort of continuation, and I mean, there'll be some differences obviously, but yeah, free to play stuff. It's cool to see like games like this kind of be free to play, and I mean, it even says in the article Sims 4 is free to play, which I forgot it went free to play, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's been out since 2014, so close to 10 years. But the thing that keeps it fresh are the mods, is what I was saying.
yeah, mods.
Like,
I mean, continuous content they add to it as well, with these
oh yeah,
packs and
dude.
everything, and they have not stopped support on it for what's almost a 10-year run. So, it's yeah, it's definitely why the game has lasted. But yeah, it's cool to see. I don't know, man. There's so many people that play The Sims that don't really play video games, right? At least that's
Oh
what I've
yeah,
noticed.
dude.
It's like,
100%. This is a non-gamers game.
yeah,
Like,
it's a
it's
gateway game, right? Like,
yes, it's a gateway game. It's kind of similar to what's it called? Harvest Moon, maybe? Is that the game I'm thinking of?
yeah, Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, that kind of.
Yeah, Stardew Valley, stuff like that, because it's very simple to get into.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, there are people that still think The Sims 3 is better than The Sims 4 as well.
I
It's
mean,
like, eh,
I don't know, Mike. We could go back to a Halo debate here, right? A lot of people like the older Halos. It's like there's a lot of people that like the older versions of games because it's kind of what they.
yeah,
It's what they were,
would you
It's what you grew up
nostalgic?
on. Yeah, it's kind of nostalgic factor, and I'm sure it's kind of the same with The Sims. But then again, it'd be interesting too. I love at some point to go back and just see like some of the original Sims and kind of how it evolved. Like I need to find one of those like retrospective videos and just like
Oh yeah, I
go
love
down that.
those.
Oh,
I actually watched one of those for Mortal Kombat 1, trying to like, okay, how do I piece together the whole Mortal Kombat storyline? So when
uh,
the new game comes out, I can buy the little button attachment packs for my Thrustmaster controller. Then I'm out there just destroying kids.
bada
But that
bing,
attachment's
body him.
$35, dude.
Oh my
So
gosh.
much. So much.
Guys trying to body fools in Mortal Kombat, dude. I respect it.
I'm trying to do everything I can. But you know what else is probably going to be expensive is what Embracer Group's trying to do.
It's facts. Mike, got a Forbes article for you.
Oh, good old
That's how
Forbes,
you
man.
know. That's how you know it's
That's
go.
how you know
That's how
it's
you know it's
that's
like,
how you know
all
it's good
right,
money.
this is a big story right here. Paul Tassi wrote it as senior contributor, video games, television, movies, and the internet. Embracer Group is reportedly considering selling Borderlands developer Gearbox. That's like, it's crazy. Talk about Borderlands, dude. It's a huge IP.
It's massive.
That's a Embracer Group, the games industry player that has been snapping up studios and IPs for a while now, is currently a bit wobbly. After a $2 billion investment deal fell through, it has had to totally change its plans, which will now have to include studio closures and layoffs. Deal
Oh, jeez.
dissolved through unknown reasons, but after gloomily announcing the news, Embracer shares dropped 40%. Now, as part of an attempted recovery, Reuters reports it is considering selling the selling of Gearbox of Borderlands and more recently Remnant 2 Fame, which they purchased just 2 years ago in 2021 for $1.4 billion. Um, Paul supposed that would be most of the way to filling a $2 billion hole, but the same source was unclear if the deal would actually happen. Bracer has bought dozens of smaller studios and a few larger ones since 2017. Gearbox was probably its highest profile deal, but famously, Bracer Group bought Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal off Square Enix in 2022, gaining access to a storied IP Tomb Raider, where a new game is supposed to be in development alongside other IPs like Deus Ex and Thief. The deal felt like something of a steal at just $300 million. As for Gearbox, Borderlands 4 is currently in development, the franchise being a huge seller across 3 mainline games now and a few spin offs. A Borderlands movie is also on the way in 2024, somehow starring 2 different Oscar winners. Kate Blanche, I think it's how you say her name.
Oh yeah, that's it.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that's it.
Blanchett.
I couldn't remember if I got it right.
Kate Blanchett.
And Jamie Lee Curtis. If Embracer is selling Gearbox, who will be buying it? 2K has remaining
Microsoft.
I mean, yeah, that's right. It's fun.
Could you
It's a
imagine?
one, right?
Jeez.
2K is ready to get publisher of the Borderlands series despite this deal. But in terms of a full sales, the obvious suspects are Sony and Microsoft. Look at that, Mike. Reporter
Oh, look at me.
Mike over here. Both snapping up high-profile developers from Bungie to the monstrous Activision Blizzard. Gearbox would be cheap compared to some of these past deals, and Borderlands is a solid IP to lay hands on. Bracer shares have ticked up in the wake of this sale rumors, which again, if they could get a similar price for Gearbox, would go some amount of distance to plugging a $2 billion hole. But they'd lose one of their largest purchases just 2 years after making that deal. Paul is somewhat concerned over at The Verge about the fate of Crystal Dynamics and Eidos, given the current situation over there, but there's no info about them in this news. Crystal Dynamics is still doing a new Tomb Raider game, and Eidos Montreal is reportedly working on a new IP. We'll see what happens from here. Embracer has not commented on this report made by Forbes. Oh, man.
Man, dude.
They're trying to close that gap, Mike. You know what I'm saying? You're presented this monstrous deal. I think we sourced it. We reported, I think it was like Saudi Arabia or something like that. It was a group out of there or something like that. It was supposed to give this money. And the deal fell through unexpectedly, apparently, to Embracer. They announced with, I guess, one of the CEOs or something announced with a heavy heart that the deal just disappeared. They just pulled out last minute.
I wonder what the reasons for pulling out was.
Yeah.
Like,
Seemed
hopefully
like
they lost interest, and it's not like, oh, hey, the $2 billion investment is more than everything that Embracer owns, and they felt scammed, you know? Like, how bad is Embracer struggling? Are they struggling as bad as Ubisoft? Like,
it almost seems like it, right? Like
it does.
it's like
Well, maybe.
it's
I don't
crazy.
want them to fail. That's the thing, man. I really like the Tomb Raider IPs, and the fact that they got it and they're not doing anything with it yet is really disappointing for me. But Borderlands is a big deal too. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, right? It seems like it just kind of gets worse for Embracer. I don't know.
It does.
I mean, who knows if in a year they'll kind of be still up, you know? I mean, they're working on the Tomb Raider stuff. Hopefully that's good. I mean, they're working on Borderlands 4. I mean, surely that, another Borderlands game would certainly help. But I think it's certainly one of those things, if you're trying to get this funding and you need this kind of money, it's like, where are you going to get it kind of thing. So it's kind of a hard thing to figure out, but I mean, if they were to sell Gearbox, it would certainly help them out a lot from the sound of it. So, unfortunately, I think it could be an option. I mean, it's not like Xbox or Sony buys it, right? But you can imagine it's not going to come out on multiple consoles. And those Borderlands games, man, they came out on everything, right? So it's like, it would certainly be a blow, I think, to at least one or the other, depending on where it goes. But, yeah, it's interesting stuff to see, to say the least. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not too optimistic on Embracer over the next year, but I guess we'll see if hopefully they find some glimmer of hope.
Yeah, it's the weird thing about Borderlands 4 is there's just like there's so much speculation and rumors going around about when it's gonna be released. There was periods where they said it wasn't in development at all, and then there are other periods where it was in development. And I saw one recently, it was just like, "Yeah, it's supposed to come out, like, Q1, Q2 of 2023," and now it's, like, Q3 of 2024, but I haven't seen anything from Borderlands at all. It's like Borderlands 3 came out in 2019, and then, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands came
Yeah,
out last year. So it's like the devs are gotta be super busy, right? And they're supposed to be doing layoffs. It's like, "Oh, no." Hopefully, I hopefully nothing bad happens out of this.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy stuff, and yeah, I mean, it's been so long since the last Borderlands. It feels like, which I mean, it has been a while, and like the more I think about it, I was like, it didn't seem like a long time, but it really has. I mean, it's been years, right? So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
Borderlands, a new Borderlands is probably due soon. You would hope. Um,
you would think, yeah, but
yeah,
again, I feel like everything's so rocky this last 3 years since everything shut down, but now it's especially rocky with, like, interest rates going up and, like, people trying to get acquisitions, and, it seems like all these IPs just keep switching hands over and over again, that we don't really know what IP is gonna be a priority for the new people that inherit it, I guess.
yeah. I mean, that's a fair point, and it's certainly kind of hard to tell, I think, but um, yeah, overall, I don't know, man. I hope best
Sheesh.
for Embracer, but it's rough out here. And I think too. I was trying to remember if it was Embracer that had the studio that did Saints Row. I feel like it was, but I can't remember.
Here, I'll look it up right now.
Yeah,
Saints
because
Row.
the reason I bring that up is because that studio recently shut down, which is unfortunate. But I was trying to remember if it was a part of that. I think it was either a part of this or some other kind of development publisher kind of conglomerate. I think it's
Volaton?
yeah. I think
Volaton?
that was the name of the developer. I was trying to remember if it was under some sort of group like this. I think it was, but it
It was actually, holy crap.
was under Embracer.
Yeah, 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 it was underneath Gearbox.
Ah,
And Gearbox is basically is underneath Embracer. So
yeah, the
by
umbrellas.
extension, it was. It's hard to tell with these umbrellas. They're so massive now. Like,
I know.
it's crazy. It's like everybody's part of everybody at this point.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Volaton's
Oh,
also a part of THQ. Yeah,
THQ, dude.
so yeah, and that, like, doesn't really exist anymore either. It's like it's I how do you keep track, you know? THQ went bankrupt, and now how many of these, like, massive developers are going bankrupt, man?
It's
Eh,
it's more than you would like to see, right?
yeah, and then, uh, Volaton got basically inherited in 2000, and then Gearbox got inherited, and jeez, it's all over the place, man.
Yeah. But yeah,
But
studios dropping like flies. In this uncertain
they are.
economy, Mike.
Yeah, it
Uncertain
seems like
times.
they're all, consolidating.
Yeah,
That's what it
for
feels
the
like.
most part, I feel like yeah, it's probably something like that. Um, I don't know, dude, it's crazy stuff, dude. I hope the best for Embracer, but it's like, geez, dude, this is not the best.
Yeah,
So,
I think we're far from seeing, this stop. Just basically, like, all these developers just disappearing, things massive layoffs. I think Ubisoft being in massive trouble might be the biggest one that is really concerning to me. They're essentially putting all their eggs into Star Wars Outlaws.
pretty much. I will
Yeah,
say,
if that flops or ooh, geez.
yeah, I mean, I will say, silver lining. At least it seems like from first impressions of Assassin's Creed Mirage, Assassin's Creed
Oh,
is
yeah.
back to roots, which is good to
Yes.
hear. It's a much smaller game, which is also good to hear. Um,
Mhm.
so I mean that's something again. I don't necessarily plan to check that game out when it releases, but like
Yeah.
who knows if it goes on sale or something next year. I mean that might be a title I snag up because I feel like that'll be one to revisit. That'll be one to kind of visit. When I'm not as busy with other titles, right? Because it's hard to find room with everything. I'll be probably knee deep in Cyberpunk, anyways. So,
Oh,
so
the other thing we could
yeah,
mention is Ubisoft signed the deal, so they now have exclusive rights to stream. Is it through the cloud?
yeah,
All
it's
Activision Blizzard game, or is
yeah.
I think it's through the cloud.
Yeah, they have, I think, like, the licensing rights or whatever to stream
Yeah.
Activision Blizzard games. So
which is going to be clutch in the future when everybody starts getting this high speed internet. You know.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, that should help them out. Certainly. So
Definitely should. But for
yeah,
now, Embracer's definitely in hot water, and if they're trying to sell Borderlands and Gearbox, dude, that's concerning. And we got to find out. We got to basically keep an eye on this one.
yeah,
Breaking news:
yeah.
like a massive developer might be gone. Crazy.
So, yeah, it's interesting stuff, man. We'll hopefully hear more soon. But Embracer.
Yes,
Jeez.
sir. Well, I think that's all we got for the week, don't we?
Yeah, I don't think I got anything else. That was about it. That's about it.
Yeah. We got I think we should remind some people some games that are coming up before we do the typical closeout feature. But I did mention Harvest Moon, and that's actually out now. But
True.
the crew's coming out. I think 3 games that are pretty exciting, and you can actually add on to this if I'm missing any. I mean, the easy one is the Cyberpunk DLC that's going to be coming out in about 2 weeks. But I'm very excited for Liza P or Pinocchio. I've seen
True.
some reviews. It looks really good. Very
Positive, yeah.
highly rated. I haven't seen any gameplay, although there is some out there. And then Mortal Kombat 1, which I'm super excited for. I played a lot of the Mortal Kombat games, and just to see all of that like animations and the throwback and just the feeling of like seeing the gameplay and being like, oh my god, that's like similar to the first game I ever played of Mortal Kombat. That's similar to the N64 version. That's similar to the GameCube version. That's similar to what I played in the arcade like a couple of years back, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're excited about that. I've never been super into like fighting games, but obviously I appreciate, just the just overall like technological feats. I feel like graphically that these games with each release, right? It's like it feels like it just gets better and better.
They're getting
So,
better.
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how it gets adopted to the fighting community and their the competitive drive and like how tournaments adapt, because it's naturally a competitive game. It's great for esports. So I'll be watching that personally. I want to learn some new stuff. I've been trying to get into Super Smash, and that's also stuff that I watch. I love fighting games. They're cool.
Well, best
But
of
what do you say we
luck.
close out, man? What do you say we close out? We
Yeah.
covered what, like 5 articles here. If you guys want to go check it out for yourself and you just didn't want to really click through, or you want to read everything on your own pace, we got links in the description below. You can check it out. We also have a Discord. We also have, dude, we're on every audio platform. It's kind of nuts. So follow there. Like, you don't have to watch us on video. We appreciate it though. So did I leave anything out, Kyle? Do you want to let people know? We got Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, dude.
Everything you
Twitter.
need is really in the description if you want to check it out.
Yeah, I know. We got shorts. Got, segments. Got a lot.
Shorts. Yeah. Yeah, we're popping off. We appreciate the new follows, man. The new subscriptions that we're getting on YouTube. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. I guess without further ado, I'm Michael Anthony. This is Kyle Heath, man. This is the M2 Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Hope you have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
See you.
Bye.